everyone, this is Neha Tulsyan from Crescent Creation. Welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm sharing 5 cards that I made out of one kit. This is the Insect Cuties Box of the month from Not Too Shabby Shop. And as of today, while I'm recording this video, this kit is still available in stock, but there are only limited kits, so hurry up. And here I'm just quickly sharing what you get in this box. You get 2 4x6 clear stamp sets. I am in love with these cute images. The first set is the Buzzy Bee stamp set, and this here is the Insect Cutie stamp set. Is it just me, or are these insects so adorable? I'm in love with these cuties, seriously. You also get 2 embellishment packs in this kit. This here is the self-adhesive rhinestones from Gina Marie Designs. And you also receive a pack of flower embellishment, which I do not have with me, but it will be there in your kit. Next is the pack of ephemeras. Look at these cuties. They match with your stamp sets and they are so adorable. You also get 2 6x6 paper pads. The first one here is the Summer Flowers paper pack. You get 24 sheets, 4 of each design. And here I'm just quickly showing you all the designs that you get in this paper pack. The next one here is the Busy Bees paper pack. Again, you get 24 double-sided sheets, 4 of each design. And what's cool about this kit is that you also receive a slimline paper pack. It's a 4 embossed watercolor slimline paper pack that measures 4 by 9 inches. So these are the products that you'll get in this kit if you subscribe for the box of the month for July. And you get so many products that coordinate with each other, so you can create some really cute and adorable cards. Now I'll first go ahead and stamp all my images from both the stamp sets. I'm using a Copic friendly ink to stamp these images, as I'm going to Copic color these images. So here I'm starting coloring one of my bees, and I'm using warm grey markers here. The little hand that you see coming on the right is my daughter's. She wanted to grab all my markers. She loves to be around me when I'm coloring. She thinks that she would have so much fun because I would be busy coloring and she can have fun in my craft room. So here I'm using W6, W5, W4, W3 and W00 to color the face of the bee. I use so many markers here because the face of the bee is a little bigger and I wanted to have a good blend of colors. So I had to use 5 markers here to get a good blend. Here I'm using R20 to add blush to its cheeks. Next I'm using W7 to add color to its eyes. Now moving on to coloring the body, I'm using some Y markers here. I'm using Y19, Y15 and Y11 Copic markers to color the body. Usually you will use the same yellow markers to color the face too, but I wanted my bee's face to be grey. Here I'm using W4 and W3 markers to color the arms of the bee. And now for the crown on our queen bee, I'm using some YR markers. I'm using YR24, YR23 and YR21 Copic markers. Next for the wings, I'm using BG11 and BG10. I added some shadows towards the bottom of the wing using BG11 and then blended the whole thing out using BG10. Off camera, I colored most of my bees similarly, and here I'm just showing you how I colored that dripping heart that one of the bees is holding using the YR markers. To color the flower on top of the bee's head, I'm using YR18 and YR15 here, and I'm also using YG17 and YG01 for the leaves. Now I'm showing you how I add highlights to my images using my white gel pen here. So here I'm all done with my bees, and now I'll move on to coloring rest of my cute insects. For that cute little butterfly there, I'm using E39, E37, E35 and E33 markers to color the face and the body. E39 being the darkest marker, I added shadows using that marker, then blended that out using E37. Next I used E35 as my medium tone, and lastly brought in E33 and blended everything out. For the face, I used R20 marker to add blush to its cheeks. Here I'm using some V markers to color the butterfly's wing. I'm using V09, V04 and V01 Copic markers. Next, I'm using some warm grey markers to color my ladybug's face. I'm using W6, W5, W3 and W00 Copic markers here. Using the same markers to color the body of the ladybug here. Next, I'm using some R markers to color the wings. I'm using R89, R59 and R39 Copic markers. I'm not sharing the complete coloring of all the images as I've colored almost all of them very similarly. Next, I'm coloring the snail here. I'm using G05, G03 and G02 Copic markers to color the body of the snail. Using R35 and R30 to color the bow on top of the snail's head. And for the snail's shell, I'm using E13, R12 and R000 Copic markers. Once done coloring, I'll pass this through my spreader scan and cut and die cut all my images. And now let's go ahead and create our cards. For my first card here, I die cut this 3 hexagon background using 3 cover plates from Honeybee Stamps. I used 3 different shades of yellow cardstock to die cut these backgrounds. The darker background is at the very bottom and the lighter on the very top, creating a very beautiful hexagon pattern background for my card. Here I'm just gluing all the 3 together using some liquid glue. And now I'll go ahead and glue this background onto a black cardstock. Once glued, I'll go ahead and trim off the excess black cardstock using my guillotine trimmer. With the help of my MISTI, I'll go ahead and stamp a sentiment for this card on a black cardstock strip. I'm white heat embossing the sentiment Happy Birthday from the Insect Cuties stamp set. Here I have prepped the surface using some anti-static powder tool and now I'm stamping the sentiment using some clear ink. Now I'll pour some white embossing powder onto it and then heat set it using my heat tool. Now I'll go ahead and glue this directly to my hexagon background that I created earlier. And then trim off the excess that's hanging off the card. Next, I'll bring 2 of the bees image and add some foam tape behind them. Remove the backing and glue them in place. And now I'll put this onto a A2 size white card base. And since this panel is just a little smaller than an A2 size, I will have a little bit of white border peeking from all sides. For the inside of my card, I'm stamping the sentiment, even the tiniest things can be miracles, using some black ink. And that's it, that finishes my first card. For my next card design, I started with die cutting 2 scalloped rectangles out of scalloped A2 card frames from Honeybee Stamps. And to save myself some black cardstock, I die cut a birthday sentiment from that black rectangle, and I'll use this sentiment later in this video. So here I'm just inking up that white panel using some tumbled glass distress oxide ink. And since I'm using my blending brush here, I'm able to add directly color to the center of this panel very easily. Now I have smooshed some salty ocean distress oxide ink onto an acrylic block, added some Lawn Fawn Stardust glitter to it, and now I'm splattering the whole white background using my fan brush. Next I splattered Wild Honey distress oxide ink similarly onto the background. And lastly, I splattered some black soot distress oxide ink onto the background. Splatters are a great way to add texture to your plain backgrounds. The only thing to remember is while between colors, you want to make sure that your splatters are all dried. So here I'm just using my heat gun to speed up the drying process. And now I'll go ahead and glue this white panel to the black panel that I die cut earlier. And since I'm gluing this to the center of the black die cut, the sentiment that I die cut from the black panel will not show. And this way I saved myself a little bit of black cardstock. And before I do anything further, I'll first go ahead and stamp the sentiment. I'm stamping the sentiment Be Wonderful from the Busy Bee stamp set. And here I have these hexagons that I saved from my last card. Remember those 3 hexagon background die cuts that I adhered together to create my background? I saved those negative pieces and now I'm using those hexagons to create a pattern here. So this is one of the tips that I would like to give you. Never throw your negative die cuts, especially if they are some kind of shapes. You will end up using those shapes somewhere or the other. So here I'm just gluing all these 3 sizes of hexagons randomly onto my background using some liquid glue. And once I'm done with the background, I'll go ahead and glue the bee image using some foam tape. And lastly, I'll go ahead and glue this panel onto a A2 size card base using some liquid glue. To finish off this card, I'm embellishing it using the Gina Marie rhinestones that came in this kit. I'm also adding 3 of these rhinestones to the bee's crown, and that just makes the crown pop out so much. I just like that look. And that finishes my second card for today. For my third card, I played with some pattern papers. I wanted to use my pattern papers a little differently. So here I have these two pattern papers that I have cut to size. The background pattern paper is 4 by 5¼ inches, and this tall one that I'm gluing here is 5¼ by 2½ inches. Now I'm gluing this piece to a black cardstock that's slightly bigger than this piece to get a black border all around. And then I'll glue this to a white A2 size card base. For the focal image on this card, I'm gonna add a bee to this card that we colored earlier, but I wanted to add something more. So here I fuzzy cut these beehives from one of the pattern papers. I glued the first beehive using some foam tape. And now I'm gluing the rest of the hives around the first one using some liquid glue. So this is another way you can use your pattern papers. So instead of using the pattern papers as a whole, cut out the elements from the pattern paper that you like and use them on your cards. Adding some foam tape behind the bee and gluing that in place. Now for the sentiment, I'm white heat embossing the sentiment "Hello my friend" from the same stamp set onto a black cardstock strip. I like the look of white heat embossed sentiments quite a lot, and especially with bee themed where you have all black, white, yellow color going on. The white sentiment on black cardstock just pops out. Once I have heat set the sentiment off camera, I'm using my scissors to fuzzy cut the sentiment. And now I'm just gluing it in place using some liquid glue and foam tape. And lastly, to finish off this card, I added some of those Gina Marie rhinestones. And my third card for today is done. For my fourth card, I played with some pattern papers, and I'm also going to show you how I made changes to my ephemera die cuts. I'm not a very big fan of ephemeras. I like stamped and colored images more compared to the ephemeras. But I wanted to use these ephemera die cuts from this kit because they are so stinking cute. So I decided to change them a little bit so that I would like them a little bit more than I already do. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm outlining this whole image, this cute butterfly image, using a permanent black pen. The pen I'm using here is the Sakura Micron pen. And I'm just going over this whole image and quickly outlining the complete image. I'm not worrying about the little details, but just outlining it enough so that whole image pops out a little more. And next I'm just using my scissors and trimming off the excess white border that's around these images. Our die cuts do have these white borders, but they are not so thick, so I'm just trimming around, leaving a very thin white border all around these images. So once that's done, I'll keep those ephemeras aside, and now I'll work on my background. So for this background, I decided to create lots of layers using just the pattern papers. I pre-cut different sizes of pattern papers that I thought would fit my A2 size card properly, and here I'm just figuring out how I want these pattern papers to go onto my background. And once I'm happy with it, I'll just go ahead and glue them using my double-sided tape. So here I'm just gluing these different pattern papers and just creating layers. But when I'm doing my voiceover and looking at this part of the video, I think in the future I'll just do it a little differently. To make sure that all these pattern papers show properly, for the next time I'll go ahead and matte each of these pattern papers with some black cardstock, and that will just define each of these pattern papers, and they will not look so lost as they are looking right now to me. It's not that I didn't like the design, I really liked it. It is a little different from what I usually create, but I really like that I attempted something new. It's just a little busy for my taste. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about this card. Once done gluing the pieces, I'll go ahead and trim off the excess that's hanging off the card, and then I'll glue this panel onto a black cardstock that's slightly bigger than this panel to get a black border all around. And lastly, glue this to a yellow A2 size card base. And my fourth card is done. For my last and the fifth card, I decided to create a slimline card. How can I not create a slimline card, especially when I have a whole slimline paper pack in this kit? To start, I trimmed out one of the pattern paper from the slimline packs to 8.5 by 3.5 inches, and I'm gluing one of the 6 by 6 pattern paper on top of it, keeping it a little bit towards the bottom. Here I have another piece of pattern paper that was left out from the previous card, and I'm gluing that directly to my card front. Next, I'm white heat embossing the sentiment happy on a black cardstock strip. And here I'm just fuzzy cutting the sentiment using my scissors. Next, I'm gluing this birthday sentiment using some liquid glue that we die cut earlier in the video. Remember, I die cut the sentiment out of that scalloped black rectangle because I wanted to save some black cardstock. So this is that sentiment. So here I'm just gluing this directly to my card front. And as this sentiment is a little long, it's not gonna fit my card front straight. So I am gluing it at an angle. And next I'll go ahead and glue the happy sentiment that I just white heat embossed on top of it. And then I'll go ahead and glue both my images in place using some liquid glue. Lastly, I'll glue this card front to a white slimline card base, and that finishes my fifth and the last card for today. So this was my video featuring Insect Cuties Box of the Month from Not Too Shabby Shop. If you like this video, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And also hit that notification bell to get notified every time I upload a new video. Here are a few more videos that you might like to watch. Thank you for visiting. Have a nice day.